it just doesn't really matter to test, I don't know, let's say 50 versus 48 versus 52 dollars, because those differences are super small. So as your first price test should be something like 40 versus 60 versus 80, like some big differences. So we when we test the length, we find out that there's almost no difference in trial conversion rate in our case between, let's say, 3 and 7 day trial length.
My name is Jacob Rushfin, founder and CEO of Botsy and the host of Price Power, the podcast for subscription apps to grow their revenue. Today, we're talking with Michal Parizek. Michal is a senior growth product manager at Mojo and an expert in mobile subscription app monetization conversion optimization. We talk about how to project 13-month revenue, how to sequence price tests, why free trials still matter, why the ratio between monthly and yearly plans can actually be more important than the price, and much more.
Hey, Michael. Super excited to have you here on the podcast. You've done so much research on price testing and written amazing blog posts for us. I'm really excited to dive into it.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
Something I was really curious about is, you talked about looking at both short-term revenue and it's like 13-month revenue or 13-month LTV prediction when evaluating price tests. How do you blend these signals when deciding whether to actually ship a variant from an experiment?
Yeah. So for kind of all price test, we figure out that we just can't focus on new revenue as we usually did for some other tests like paywall design tests. Because what we've seen that prices, particularly when we've increased prices, what we've seen then is lower renewal rates for like monthly plans and some signals for lower renewal rates for the yearly plan. So we wanted to make sure that by potentially shipping a new set of prices for it, we wanted to make sure that we were not harming the long-term revenue, like year one, year two, etc. So we are thinking like how to evaluate it early enough so we don't need to wait like a few months or a year when we do a price test. It won't be really convenient. So we figured out that what we could do is to have like a prediction for, we call it like bound 13, which is essentially kind of you have like the full revenue for the full 1 year, and then you have sort of like a glimpse of or like a peek on what's going to be the year two revenue. So what we then do, we take the new revenue for essentially what we get on day one or like in the first days, and then we essentially have a sum with new revenue that one and the 13-month new revenue projection. And then what we get is essentially like sort of like a long-term revenue indication. And that's how we then sort of decide on the variant, on whether we essentially ship it or not, or roll out or not the testing variant.
Do you have this calculation like automated, set up in like a data warehouse or a dashboard, or is this manual? You're doing this each time?
There was sort of like a report template, which we then reuse for the price test, and we pull the data usually like manually from Amplitude or Revenue Kit for the renewal rates, and the calculation for this 13-month revenue projection was so the first sort of input, which was super key, was a proxy to renewal rates. And what we've used as a proxy was like 7-day cancellation rate, because we find out that in data that actually like lots of, I think, 20 to 30% of the cancellation, like subscription cancellation, happened in the early days, in let's say the first 7 or 10 days. So in the first 7 or 10 days, you already kind of know what the renewal rate might be for certain cohort. So we measured that 7-day cancellation rate for each variant, each price point, and we then use it to predict what the renewal rate will be for the year one for yearly plans or for month one for the monthly plans. And we essentially take we know that, let's say, the 7-day cancellation rate for the testing variant is 20% higher than the baseline. So we know that very likely the renewal rate for month one could be also like 20% higher, 20% higher. And essentially using that, that insight, then we can calculate all the other renewal rates. And then with that, we can actually, sort of predict what's going to be the total revenue for the monthly subscription, let's say for the whole month, so for the 12 month next to each other. And very similarly for yearly subscription. So it's important to, if you have enough data, of course, for monthly and yearly plans, to basically calculate them separately. So you have like 7-day cancellation rate for the monthly plans and the 7-day cancellation rate for the yearly plans. Then if you had that, and if you get enough confidence in those data, then you are able actually to quite confidently predict what's going to be the renewal rate. And then you can again use that sort of simple calculation to calculate the predicted renewal rate or predicted renewal revenue for that particular variant.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you found, it makes sense for annual where the there's just one term. You found that for monthly as well, that even just for the monthly first period, that the monthly renewal patterns follow the same kind of curve, and that even in those first 7 days of monthly cancellations, based on your pre-existing data, you can model out what that's kind of the curve will be in terms of renewals.
What we did for the monthly, we essentially used that the 7-day cancellation to calculate the month one sort of renewal, and then for month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, we essentially kept the curve similar in terms of percentage, like let's say month 3 versus month 2. So essentially the curve is same, but the starting point is different because early in the subscription, there were less people or more people canceling, and then the curve sort of stayed the same. But since in Mojo we've got the majority of the subscription in the yearly plans, essentially like what was like super essential for us was the yearly plan. So we got it a bit easier because as you said, it's just essentially one number, it's just one renewal rate. But the logic I described, we applied for monthly.
Right. And so potentially, if you have a large number of monthly users, you could maybe get a little more complicated. But it's not the priority for you, where the majority of the accuracy comes from projecting annual plans, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what
so
you're
the
more concerned
priority.
about.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you found that even with price increases or decreases in the annual plan, the cancellation pattern still stays the same, and so that those 7-day cancellation rates remain accurate. It's just like you say, a multiplier a little up or a little down, but that's still the ratios remain the same.
Yeah, we've then checked after, let's say, 6 or 12 months after we roll out essentially the higher price or lower price. Then we check the renewal rate and compared with what the model or the prediction said. And luckily for us, we could see that there was the pattern. It wasn't maybe like exactly the same, but we've seen that when we've predicted that the renewal rate is going to go down by, let's say, 20%, it kind of did really go down by roughly, it was like something between like 15 to 25%. So we've seen that some change in the and regarding like whether like still the 7-day cancellation rate kind of stayed reliable or relevant, and we can actually even like essentially even lowering or higher pricing it still these like pretty big chunk of cancellations happening in the first 7 to 10 days actually. So we still see that, which is still like at least like a good signal for us that we can still use that sort of proxy to translate or to use it for prediction of renewal rates in the future.
Yeah, so in terms of that, using cancellation rate as that predictor for new apps, maybe launching that don't have a full year's worth of annual renewal data, do you have any like easy multiplier to use for them? If you receive, X number of cancellations in the first 7 days, multiply that times four, and you'll probably get a good renewal rate. Of course, it's not
Yeah, yeah.
every app has slightly different renewal rates and it's not perfect, but just for the people to get a
Eh,
range.
well, I think for like new ads, I think what's good is to look for some benchmarks. There's like a couple of benchmarks available. Yeah, I think it's quite easy to search and look for your app or your vertical and look and yearly monthly retention. So like the yearly retention will probably be somewhere between could be like 20 to 30% or 15 to 25. Really, I think depends here on the market, on the vertical, on the various factor. But if you don't have yet any history in renewal rate, I think the benchmarks are probably the best resource for that. And then you can use that sort of as a prediction of what's gonna your apps renewable.
So you really do need a year's worth of data before you can start looking at cancellation rates to predict
Uh,
anything.
no. But yeah, if you don't have the year of data, you still can have the cancellation. Though you that's something for 7-day cancellation you will certainly have. And then for the yearly renewal rate, you look for like benchmarks for your vertical, for your market, and find what the benchmarks are saying. So and then use that for the calculation. That should be good enough.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think this is super helpful, and I think that this is always a tricky thing apps struggle with is kind of predicting it that longer term revenue, that 13-month revenue, where most people just focus on short term revenue, where really to understand what's going to be valuable and not shoot yourself in the foot, you need to be projecting out that. So I think people will find this useful. Uh, Something else I wanted to ask about is, you've talked about emphasized don't blindly trust Apple's automatic price tiers and instead setting regional prices individually. Uh, how do you start going about this? And what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen teams make with localization?
Yeah, I think that one is, I think, really important for essentially any app which wants to grow their revenue outside US or outside their original country. Uh, because what Apple does, just maybe like is just for those who don't know, Apple essentially calculate the local prices just by using exchange rate, and that's pretty much it. They don't really use any purchasing power insights, anything like that. So it's essentially like super simple, and in many cases, just kind of wrong prices, which will not work for your app or for any app. So so I suggest you look at key markets, essentially not of course not starting with like trying to localize every currency or every market. Just focus of course first to let's say top 5 markets, and then like and do some what we've done in Mojo. First, we do some research in terms of like how the competition price the app in the country. So that's like sort of one input. Uh, the other wise is to look into conversion rates and like your app data in terms of like the funnel, the purchase funnel from like new users to existing users, from the paywall to starting trial, converting from the trial, and look at the data and just look at your countries you are interested in, and just compare and see if that actually data suggests something. If like for example, like if one country like it's like much lower conversion rate than the other for like let's say a similar price point, it might suggest that actually the price point maybe it's not the best one for the respected country. So your data can also like suggest good insights. By using those, you can then figure out like what the variance can be for the test, and then start executing prices in the countries you are interested in.
So if we see one country with really low conversion rates, maybe we should test lowering prices. Um, do you think the opposite holds true? If you see, countries or group of countries with really high conversion rate, maybe that's a signal we can raise prices, or do you go, well, we're getting a good conversion rate, so maybe that's a risk, or do you just say, well, we'll test it and see?
Yeah, I think it depends on also what the sort of competition has as well. Like if, let's say, mm, our price, or let's say the conversion rate is very, very, above average, super high, uh, but the competition actually has the same prices as ourselves, um, maybe going, let's say, I don't know, 50% up in prices or 20%, 30% up in prices might not be like super good. I think in terms of, yeah, so I would also like include that comparison with the rest of the market. Also looking, one thing maybe we forget to mention, but also look at the costs we have in the like internal costs. For example, if you use some AI, what are the costs we need to like take into account to sort of which will translate to the price. We can also take into account like the UA cost in the particular country. That also could kind of put some indication whether our price is actually pretty kind of accurate or is pretty kind of relevant for the particular country. But yeah, I think it's always getting just some prices. I kind of suggest retest your prices every 6 months. So I think there's no harm actually trying to even higher prices. So there's pretty much no kind of danger. It just is running like a 1 or 2 weeks price test. So I'm always kind of open to that. So yeah, I would say yeah, definitely do that.
And there's with pricing, there's it's not people aren't just making a decision on the price and deciding. There's so many factors that go in. I was curious, how do you think about the relationship between pricing, packaging, in terms of monthly versus yearly versus weekly versus trials, and then the design of the paywall? How do you think about all these things interact? How do teams prioritize what order to test in?
Yeah, it's complex inside. Like prices are just not about the price point, but as you mentioned, like all those things are important, and and they're essentially form the whole thing, and customers essentially look at it not really specifically at the price, but consider all those factors. And from my experience, the prices, and by prices I don't mean essentially adjusting different price points, but also the packaging, different plans, different introductory offers, like different trials. That all is more impactful than the paywall design, the copy, or this kind of stuff. So I tend to prioritize more those because the experience I have, but depends, I think, on the app. If in the app they already made like a ton of different prices, then let's just switch to a different area. So the paywall, like the content, the layout, the visuals, etc. But if you are sort of starting with paywall optimization and pricing optimization, I think it's actually it's better to prioritize the packaging and pricing, and not the paywall design itself. And then in terms of the different components of like the price and the pricing package and the packaging, I I tend to believe that it's it's first looking we discussed like before, uh looking at all data, looking at the sort of looking the competition and comparison, give some insights. And if you even see that we are like there's no obvious sort of mm, low hanging fruits, for example, like in terms of pricing, and we are sort of similar as the competition, then I would kind of try to analyze what plan essentially is like yearly, monthly, weekly, what we have currently, where we can see the biggest long-term value, and I would try to optimize for that particular plan and get highest share of it as possible. And then we can do with different design of the paywall. We can also just tweak the prices a little bit to essentially get that result of increasing the share of the plan. And so I would start with that one, and then yeah, we can still like tweak the prices, and then we can also play with the, let's say, introductory offer trial, so that would sort of be my order. So if you are pretty confident that you have also like roughly the price is right, then try to optimize for the sort of the right packaging in terms of yearly and monthly, and then look tweak prices slightly, and then the introductory offer, and then you can follow maybe with some payable designs and then layouts, etc.
So generally, like first step is figuring out, is this the right price? That influences
Yeah.
everything. Then maybe is this the right price for regions, or do you think that like localization of price comes after maybe packaging
No, no,
tasks
no.
for your core
No, I think
region?
actually the localization essentially still should be included in the step one. So I wouldn't look uh, in the price test. I wouldn't
Yeah.
look
Okay.
globally. I would look at our key markets separately and try to sort of yeah just analyze it separately essentially. So we can see maybe in the US, the price looks
Oh,
Brazil, we are off. Okay, let's just fix the price in Brazil, and then can follow up.
so let's look at the countries with the biggest
Mm,
volume. Maybe it's, usually for most apps, it's a few, it's not
yeah,
tons. Get the price right there. For those countries, of course, the biggest country is the most important. And then once we understand the right price, we can start to figure out which package or which subscription length actually drives the most value for us, and then start to optimize more people towards that subscription.
yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree with you. As first the price, then the right sort of packaging in terms of like subscription length, and that focus on subscription length might sort of take you back to the pricing in terms of like what is the ratio between your, let's say, yearly and weekly or yearly and monthly plan. Because actually, like the ratio, in my experience, plays a big role in terms of how, what's the share of yearly and monthly subscribers and our trial is. That's I think so. It's good to play with the relationship between your plans prices, and take some care there or focus. So you can still keep the yearly price still the same, but you can just test a different monthly price to test a different ratio. And it was, in my experience, we could see big different big difference in terms of behavior when we, let's say, basically based on the monthly plan price, even though the yearly plan price stayed the same.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then after you feel like you're confident in those, then you can focus on some lower impact changes like paywall design, where paywall design can still be impactful, but generally pricing and packaging are going to be a
I think
larger
so.
impact.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. For me, like from the paywall design layout test, the most impactful tests were still the ones which, in some sense, they sort of touch the plans, the packaging, the pricing, like the one but if I describe to your blog when we've hidden a bit the monthly plan under like a separate screen, so the yearly plan was kind of seemingly looked as the only plan, and we essentially put just more priority and visual priority into the yearly plan, uh, and that actually had a big impact and just shifting the share of the yearly plans from, I believe, something like 60 to 80%. Just this change, and then really have a big drop in conversion rate, which was great. So these layout tests, I believe, just are can be super impactful.
It's interesting. Yeah, the layout tests at the end of the day, the layout often is influencing what plans and packages you can see are in focus. And of course, there's other types of design tests, but those are
Yeah,
impactful
exactly.
ones.
Those.
I've seen similar results where you show the annual plan first, and then there's the view all plans button that has a few other
Mm,
plans hidden, where the people that have higher intent and higher energy are going to go after to search those view all plans. And so it can be even that little bit of friction still is beneficial because it drives a higher share of annual
exactly.
plan.
Yeah, that we've seen exactly that. Yeah, and those kind of psychological kind of tricks like anchoring pricing and then do using some prices that decode prices. It's that just kind of works in that area. And also another good example of that is essentially like using the monthly equivalent of the yearly plan as a sort of anchoring of like what's the cost of the plan. And then when they see that the monthly equivalent of the yearly plan is just much like kind of lower than the monthly plan costs, it was another sort of push for the yearly plan, another successful test in driving more share for the yearly plan. So yeah, stuff like that kind of usually work very well.
Yep, yep, that's what I've seen too. So on that note, can we talk about free trials for a little bit? I think free trials used to be just the standard. Everyone had a free trial. Now more people are testing. No free trials or only free trials on certain
Hmm.
products. You mentioned in your blog post you've done a lot of testing here. What did you learn, or are there any quick takeaways? They don't have to be quick. Just takeaways
Yeah,
for people using free trials.
yeah, we've tested a lot actually at Feed Trials. So I think it's a powerful, it's a powerful sort of tool, powerful, weapon you can use. But again, first I would just sort of, yeah, wanted to just say that it's always good to just test it for your app and just don't take anything for granted. What actually worked for us at Mojo, no guarantee it can work for you, but for us, we actually use first we used also like offering free trial and or not offering free trial. We also use it as another tool how to drive more year subscription. So intentionally, we had only free trial for our yearly plan and not a monthly plan. And we've tested that, and it really kind of and just pushed a little bit more again for the yearly plan. So that's one thing using that for driving the plan you kind of optimize for. And then we've also tested like offering free trial or offering free trial based on country, as we've seen that like there could be some countries which essentially they value free trial more than the other. For example, like in our case, we've find out that in Latin America, just the free trial is for some reason it's just more popular or it's just more valuable than the other countries. So actually, we have few kind of regional exceptions in our sort of free trial strategy in that region, in particular. And then maybe other factor is like, oh yeah, to whom offer a free trial? Like there were a few successful kind of tests in the community, like saying that you shouldn't offer free trial for your new users because they have the highest intent and they will essentially convert even without no trial because they just downloaded your app and they're looking forward to use it. So don't offer free trial for new users. But actually for us we haven't really seen that working. So for us we find out that the free trial is actually like very important for the new users, and it's something we just when we actually removed it, we haven't really seen. We basically see negative results, and we have seen like decrease in the new revenue. So uh, and then, but another factor is actually like the length of the trial. Is yeah, typical is maybe like a 7 day free trial, which yeah, on one side it gives the users like yeah, of course, like more time to get the value from your app. And potentially you can see like higher conversion rate of the for the trial. But on the other hand, it's not so good for the UA, for the user acquisition, as you need to wait a lot longer to see if the trial convert and the payback period gets also longer. Uh, so it's one another sort of think why not to have like long free trial. So we when we test the length, we find out that there's almost no difference in trial conversion rate in our case between let's say 3 and 7 day trial length. So obviously then we've sort of rolled out the 3 day trial as we've seen, okay, the users they just it's enough for the users and it's shorter, so it's better for the business. Yeah, let's do that. Um, Yeah, so that's sort of my experience in free trial. Maybe one kind of recent thing in that what I've seen is a trend now is sort of like a paywall which allows users to design their free trial and essentially offer a couple of different free trials for the user. You can offer like a free 7 day free trial or free 3 day free trial, or sort of a paid trial, like you can offer like a 30 day trial for let's say I don't know like $5 or $10, and then you can see how that essentially then work for your users. So that could be so again a kind of interesting test. I think it's kind of worth trying, and I've heard that it can actually work very well for yeah for many apps. And we've actually just testing it as I speak, so I don't know yet how it's gonna look like, but I'm quite excited of how that will work out.
Yeah, that's a super interesting test. I would imagine it's a little it complicates analysis a bit more in terms of understanding. You have to wait a little
Yeah.
bit longer, and maybe you test it for a certain period of time, and then you look at that
Yeah, exactly.
cohort
Yeah.
in the next
Hmm.
month or two to understand how it actually converts.
Yeah, that's what he did. We'll plan to stop the
Yeah,
test soon.
and so you probably have to have enough user volume in each variant. So for smaller apps, it's probably not doesn't make sense. For medium to larger apps, you'll have enough data, and then the impact
Mm.
can outweigh the analysis complications. But then also you're complicating UA, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Where the signals to UA are a little
Yeah,
different.
exactly. So I would say that the results need to be kind of really kind of strong, and then the windows need to be really kind of meaningful to be able to, yeah, as you say, justify the negative effects on the UA. Because yeah, and the sort of uncertainty that you will see maybe after 30 days how the users who opt for that variant will yeah will convert into the full plan subscription. But yeah, as you also mentioned, we also mentioned like important
Yeah, that makes sense.
factor that yeah for all actually for all the prices and for all the tests you need to have enough data, and that's actually one of the maybe the biggest mistakes I've seen in the teams, that they don't have enough enough volume of of users and particularly like trials and purchases, and they a lot of times they essentially evaluate it on just a sort of tens or just low hundred of conversion users, and yeah you get then a lot of false positive in the results, and then yeah you're basically not making right decisions.
Something I've also found helpful is after you run that test, go look at those cohorts 3 months later, see if the accuracy is still valid, if your predictions are still valid, where you can look at those new users joining. Is those LTV still what you expected? Sometimes monthly renewal patterns can change. Sometimes annual cancellation rates can change, and so don't just assume because it looked like a winner on day 14 or day 30 that in 3 months, 6 months later. So you'll always be constantly, measuring and testing those
Yeah,
assumptions.
totally. And also what I would maybe add is to look at your sort of the source of the traffic of your downloads. For example, you can see quite a big differences between kind of traffic we drive from Meta, from Instagram, and then from TikTok. We can actually say like the users, the demographics is probably different. So the value or the how the intent they have. So you can see it as well. So with essentially if like in a couple of months time span, your sort of traffic distribution changes a lot, then it can actually also influence or translate into different performance of your paywall, and so that's also important to take into account.
Yeah, where if you run a price test once and you see weird results, maybe take a look at your traffic mix to understand, did the acquisition sources change versus normal? Is that influencing your results? And so again, nothing is in a vacuum. You have to take multiple factors into account to truly assess the success and whether your price test is going to be repeatable, which is the ultimate goal on the long term.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
One last thing here is, you mentioned that Mojo raised yearly prices by like 50% in markets in the US and Germany with minimal impact on conversion. Did you see anything in the data initially that gave you the confidence to push that hard or raise the prices by that much? Or was it just, hey, we have good conversion rates. Let's see if we can, drive these prices up further. What gave you the confidence to do that?
Yeah, but what we did, the conversion looked good. So we look at our data and see the conversion looks pretty good. But there were a few things why we did that. Number one was that the prices the original price, the baseline prices, were set as they were like 2 or 3 years before. So the prices weren't changed for a long time. So that was the number one thing. Okay, it might be really outdated. The second thing was when you look at the main competitors, you've seen okay, you belong definitely for like among the cheaper apps, and there might be potential. So and then so there were those two important sort of inputs next to the good conversion rates we've had when we compare the benchmark that look kind of above average. And then we start with the US as it was kind of number one market for us, and we've seen okay, we actually even we tested not even like 50%, we even tested even like 100% up. Uh, but this price point actually for the new revenue for actually even better than the 50%. But then we've seen lots more cancellations, like in the 7-day cancellation rate. So that price point was actually the classic example price point where we've seen okay, the short-term impact would be really good, but long-term impact like would be really bad for the business. So, but that learning and that results from the US gave us more confidence to essentially do a similar test at other key markets like in Germany, or we essentially took the main European markets like Germany, France, Spain, mostly like the Euro markets in Germany and Europe, and then cluster it together and ran the prices there.
Really, you were testing prices that were even higher. It's just that 100% increase, but you didn't see success with those. So, test multiple price
Yeah,
increases, and you'll never know unless
yeah,
you test them. And that's really, I
exactly.
think, the
Yeah.
whole message of kind of all of this is like, look, you have to try and analyze the data and see what
Yeah, exactly.
happens.
And I would even like as a first prices, I would definitely get like big differences. It just doesn't really matter to test. I don't know. Let's say 50 versus 48 versus $52, because those differences are super small. So as your first price test, it should be something like 40 versus 60 versus 80, like some big differences. So you kind of basically it gives you a rough idea where the idle pricing it, and then your second follow-up test can be kind of a little more detailed, and you can really test like whether it should be like I don't know, like differences of a couple of dollars, and that's okay. But you first should have like a really kind of a broad one, and if you are even like you don't know if it's lower or up, you can just like one lower, let's say 20 bucks lower, 20 bucks higher, and then you will see like where is the idle price. roughly is, and then you get a follow-up test to just do a more specific one.
Well, this was awesome, Michael. I really appreciate you digging into all this and sharing your knowledge. Any last parting wisdom or parting thoughts that you'd like to leave people with for price testing?
That's something that you mentioned. Yeah, you shouldn't be afraid of testing different price points. What I found out that a lot of users and a lot of founders and a lot of the app owners, they don't want to maybe like change the price because they think that what if the users find out, how did they react, they will put negative reviews, and usually it's just fall worries. Usually nothing much happens. Yeah, you essentially test the new price for just a different cohort. The other one won't know, and it's sort of like a short-term decision. And it's usually just some benefits, and then really no harm almost. So, I would just suggest just don't be afraid, and experiment with the prices and revisit that every couple of months because conditions change quickly, and you should always kind of stay relevant, and the pricing should stay sort of up to date.
Don't be afraid, but analyze your data well.
Yeah.
I think that's a good ending message. Uh, so we'll link to your blog post in the show notes. This was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. Anything else you'd like to promote, Michael?
No, not really. So just happy to if you link my article. I think it goes maybe bit deeper into certain topics, and also shows a bit different ideas. So the listeners can find out a few more things there. But it was actually super good to chat with you, Jacob. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, Michael, for joining. Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me, Jacob.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Please go to pricepowerpodcast.com to see all the episodes. Go to Spotify and YouTube and give us a subscribe and follow so you don't miss any episodes. All right, talk to you next time.